Hey guys, Primal Chaos here. So a while ago, I did a bit of a video about, you know, getting in and playing guitar and or picking up an instrument and figuring out how to not be so passive with your entertainment and maybe being a little bit more creative. And I encourage people to just go buy a cheap guitar, learn how to play it, and one day I could be reacting to your song. That was the whole sort of point of the video. And someone hit me up in the comments and just suggested maybe I could do a series on, how to get into the world of guitar playing in a little bit more of an accessible way. And there's definitely avenues for doing that. Like, you can spend millions of dollars on a guitar rig, or you can start out small. You don't even need a guitar amp. In fact, some players don't even use them anymore. So there's, we talked about potentially going out and buying a cheap guitar. But let's look at some ways you can plug that into, say, your computer or a cheap device and be able to start out and practice with a really decent sound. Like back when I started playing guitar, your options were pretty limited. You either had a dad who had gear already from when they, their heyday, which was usually old 70s stuff, which isn't bad. It's still good. But, or the other option is you somehow had enough money to buy some good gear, or you would save up. Or in the cases of most people, the first time they pick up a guitar, they'll pick up a cheap guitar from a big box store or something like that maybe comes with a practice amp, which is usually just a speaker and a really simple amplification circuit. And to be honest, they sound terrible. They really do. And it's, you wonder why you're playing the same notes you've painstakingly learned how to play from what the guy's playing on the album, but it doesn't sound anything like it because it's just a trash guitar sound. Those days are over now. There's plenty of other ways to connect up in a way that you can get a satisfying sound for basically no money, provided you have a few things. Like if you have a computer, you can get something like free plugins like Black Sun, which it may still be free, I'm not sure, but it's an amazing amp emulation plugin. I'm personally using Revolver, which is a PV product, and it's super versatile. I mean, everybody's got their different flavors. Some people use Bias. I think it's called Bias 2. There's a million. For as many guitar players, there's emulation packages to make a guitar sound in your computer. Now, I mentioned in the other video, there is a little bit more to it than that. You can't just plug a guitar straight into a computer and expect it to work. There's an issue known as latency, which means the amount of time it takes for your fingers to play a note and for that signal to pass through into the computer, through all of the effects and everything like that, and then come out through the speakers. And that time delay, if it's perceivable, it makes it basically unusable. So latency in recording gear is a really big deal. And of course, if you're playing guitar, you don't want to hear the sound a second later. You need to hear it immediately. So the way to counter that is by using what's called an audio interface, which is usually a little box that plugs in via, say, USB 3 or USB-C into your computer. And that gives you a more professional input-output. Usually it'll have a microphone input and a line input for instruments. Some of them are really complex. Some will have 24 different inputs, But for the sake of this discussion, that sort of thing, you might be able to pick up something that's reasonably good at a prosumer level, or even just a low-end pro level unit for a couple $100, maybe 150 to 180, some up to $100, somewhere around there. But that'll allow you to do so much more than just plug a guitar in. At that point, you can start recording with vocals. You can plug in a keyboard. So it's definitely worth the investment. But I just wanted to get that out of the way because it's not as simple as plugging a guitar in. But once your guitar's in and you've got a recording package, like I use a program called Reaper, which is about $60. There's recording packages out there that cost thousands of dollars, and they're very bloated and large, and they have heaps of different features that you may never use. Reaper is really slender, and it's also incredibly cheap. The license is $60, and that lasts for, I think, 2 full revisions. So like if you bought it in version 3, it might have changed. I'm just going off what I remember when I bought it years ago. But you pay for it every once in a while. But like I think in the maybe 10 years I've been using it, I think I paid for it twice. And $60 is basically nothing for the amount of work I get out of it. So what you'll do is you'll have your recording program, and then you can add what's called a plugin, which is an effect or something that alters the signal once it goes in there. It could be something like an echo or a reverb or things like auto tune. But in this case, I'm using this PV Revolver 4 as a way of taking my guitar signal. So if I turn Revolver off, the guitar will sound like this. It sounds awful, right? It's just the guitar straight into the computer with nothing. But if I turn Revolver on, suddenly... You know, there's this, it just sounds like a guitar. And, you know, everybody's got different tastes in tones. That sounds okay to me. But, you know, this is a free plugin. It is limited. It comes with a few sort of resources to get you started. But what's great about Revolver is that it's modular. So you only buy the parts that you want. Like, say, for example, you want like high gain sort of stuff like what I typically play. You can buy emulation components like guitar cabinets and guitar heads and things like that for only a few dollars each that will add that sound into the overall package. So basically you're not paying for 1,000 different sounds you're not going to use just so you can use 3, you know. And I think that's really brilliant how they've done that. And especially being that, like, you can actually, for the longest time I didn't buy anything. It's only when I really started to get into the nuance of it and decided, you know, oh, I really need a nice chimey clean sound for this guitar part, then I would go and buy that. But 9 times out of 10 I could find what I wanted just in the free bits alone. So that's something to think about. This is another one here. This is Black Sun Audio. This one is a bit more of a rock sort of solution. You know, it's kind of like just a straight up rock amp. It does come with a couple of stomp boxes like a noise gate, which I will now tweak a little bit. It's a little bit better. It's got a booster so you can have more volume going into the front end of the amp, and also a model of like a tube screamer. And I mean, that sounds perfectly great. It also comes with a whole bunch of cabinet, you'll see this term a lot, cabinet IRs. And IR means impulse response. And what that means is they've taken a real guitar cabinet and a real microphone and they've run a test signal through it and determined how much the test signal changed from the original signal to what came through that signal chain, like of the guitar amp, the guitar cabinet and the microphone. And then they apply that difference to the sound coming out of the virtual amplifier. So it sounds like you've got a real cabinet and a real microphone plugged into that amp. And so it comes with a whole bunch of really nice free ones, but again, you can add your own impulse responses. You know, I've picked up a library of them over the years from different apps and things like that. So now I have basically limitless choices about how I mic up the cabinets virtually and what cabinet I'm using to get different sounds, you know, and it makes a massive difference. So I'll just pick a random one. What have I got it on currently? Let's see what this one sounds like. So that's got more of a dark sort of boxy tone to it. Sort of reminds me a little bit more of like what's his name? Brian May, or even the Darkness maybe a little bit. It's actually not bad. It's not for me, but it's a good tone nonetheless. You know, so that's what I'm getting at is there's a lot of different options. I tend to work with Revolver a little bit more because it's more nuanced. But if you needed just a free rock and roll guitar amp plugin, this Black Sun one is insane. They also sell other different heads, which are really good also. But this is an option to sort of get you into it for free and get to know their product and stuff. And it's pretty generous. I like the fact that the companies are sort of doing that sort of thing. So anyway, that pretty much covers like working with a guitar in a computer for basically no money, as long as you have a setup to begin with. And I'm not going to lie, you don't need the world's fastest supercomputer to record music, but the better the computer you can get your hands on, the better experience you're going to have. So that's, you know, there's a barrier to entry with that, in that you do need something in place to begin with to really get this working. But once if you've already got a computer and you can spare a couple $100 for an audio interface, then the sky's the limit of what kind of quality you can get out of your guitar for basically no money. Next up, we're going to look at something a little bit different, and that is like outboard gear, like a pedal board or something like that. So let's take a look. Okay, I'm back. The miracle of pressing pause. Now, next up I wanted to talk about something like this. This is a Boss GT1. As you can see, it's tiny. It fits into the pocket of a gig bag. And this device here retails for somewhere around 230 American dollars and probably close to 300 Australian dollars, which again sounds like a lot of money, but what you get for this, for that amount of money is pretty insane. Now there's way more complicated pedal boards and more expensive ones that go up to $4,000 or more. But the beauty of this guy is its portability, its versatility, the fact that it runs on 4 AA batteries. So if you're at a gig, you don't have to go scrambling. You can just go to the nearest convenience store and pick up 4 AA's. It also runs off power, obviously, which is a better choice. But, you know, it's got an expression pedal, a control pedal, and you can also expand it using additional pedal units. So I actually built one. That's a little foot switch I made, you know, that's designed to augment what this can do. Because I've found, like, over the years, I used to take to band practice, I used to take a really heavy 1980s quad box, a guitar head, an outboard case full of other effects units and things like that, plus 2 guitars, plus, you know, anything else, leads and ephemeral sort of nonsense like that. And it was just so much hard work after all those years of moving that around and having to figure out new ways of fitting them into the car. I gave up and eventually just, you know, invested in one of these, which I take to band practice. I plug it straight into the mixing desk, and I'm good to go, you know. And purists out there are going to scream at me, but, you know, you don't have to use this at gigs. It's only just so that you're not constantly, like, I can literally go to band practice with, you know, my Boss GT1 and 2 guitars, and, you know, it's wild. It you know, it doesn't affect the overall quality. In fact, if anything, what I found in rehearsal studios is there's so much less just general racket that everyone can hear what they're playing, you know. So, but anyway, results may vary depending on how you look at the purity of guitar playing and sounds and tones and things like that. But the point is, again, I've got this sort of set up with a similar sort of sound. So, you know, that sounds great. You can also do... Oh, battery's running low. You know, there's sort of some nice cleans. It even has things like you can detune. They got acoustic sounds. You know, and so each of these patches, I can then press a control pedal and I can switch on a whole bunch of other effects and sounds within that patch without changing anything. So a lot of times what I do with my rhythm guitar sound, if I press the control key, I now get an octaver on there as well. So you get extra low. You know, or you can have it so that it goes from a slightly overdriven sound to a high gain sound, but without having 2 different patches on the device to do that. You know, there's just so much versatility in one little box. And for someone like me who only uses a small handful of different guitar sounds, it's ideal. I can just switch between them with the foot pedals and you know, it very rarely gets in my way. And the amount of time and energy it saves me from lugging stuff around is just pure bliss. That said, again, you can literally, if you're a beginner guitarist, you can pick up a guitar, pick up one of these, just plug a pair of headphones into it, and that's all you need. You don't need an amp, you don't need a speaker. You can sit there and you can practice to your heart's content, and all anyone's ever going to hear is from the other room, you know. And you can have a whole bunch of world-class sounds on this thing. And I mean, I barely tweak it. I just found some sounds I like. But if you really want to get into the details, there's an app for your computer that comes with this, and you can really tweak it. You can download patches from famous guitar players as well, all in a box that may cost you between $230 or $300, depending on where you live. And it's a way of getting into guitar with a decent sound and be able to practice with, you know, all of the effects and stuff that you might want to learn how to use and understand how they all work together. Or just things like, you know, bedroom practice amps typically don't have high gain. So doing things like pinch harmonics, you know, like those sort of squealies and like whammy dives and things like that, they just sound terrible on a practice amp with no gain and stuff like that. So it's disheartening because you want to sound like the record, you know. So that's basically two options that'll get you into guitar for relatively cheap. That and I mean, hit me up in the comments. There's probably a million other ideas too. This is just what I had on hand. I mean, I've got a small Marshall practice amp here, which was probably $400, which sounds amazing as well because it's got modeling effects and stuff built into the amplifier. And so, you can switch between 100 different sounds just with the presets and have a little bit of volume to really understand how, your guitar interacts with a speaker, for example. But it's not, what I'm getting at is you don't need to go out there and spend 10 grand on a guitar rig. You can start out small and just add bits and pieces as you go along. Sometimes you can have a $10,000 guitar rig and you can dial it back because your ego gets out of the way and you're like, I don't care what it looks like when I'm on stage. As long as I don't have to lug, a ton of gear every time I go somewhere, things like that. It should be a playing that people respond to, not the way that your guitar rig looks on stage. That's what I've learned from doing hundreds and hundreds of shows and hundreds of rehearsals. So yeah, but anyway, that's the bottom line. Hope you guys got something out of this, and keep plugging away. Pick up a guitar, learn to play it, form a band, change the world. Primal Chaos. Catch you on the next one.